Maria and welcome to SG Global News. From the resurfacing evidence suggesting the fossilized remains of Noah's Ark to the upcoming 25th anniversary of the annual Day of Unborn Child celebrations in Sydney, we have many stories to cover. Evidence suggesting a flood at the boat-shaped mound in Turkey's Durupinar Formation has resurfaced. The samples collected from the site are believed to be the remains of Noah's Ark. While this news have been previously reported, there is a renewed curiosity and interest in learning more about the discovery. A new discovery at the 7th International Symposium on Mount Ararat and Noah's Ark held in eastern Turkey suggests evidence of an ancient flood through the finding of marine fossils. Experts have identified a boat-shaped mound in Turkey's Durupinar Formation which they believe could be fossilized remains of Noah's Ark. Since 2021, a team of researchers from Istanbul Technical University, Agri Ibrahim Season University and Andrews University in the United States have been collaborating under the Mount Ararat and Noah's Ark research team. They discovered the mound, which is thought to have been submerged during the catastrophic flood around 5,000 years ago, sparking the interest of an international group of experts. The team collected nearly 30 samples of rock and soil from the site. Analysis of these samples at Istanbul Technical University revealed traces of clay-like materials, marine deposits, and seafood remnants, including mollusks. These findings suggest that the area was once submerged underwater. The soil samples, dated to a period corresponding to the biblical floods approximately 3,500 to 5,000 years ago, have fueled further interest. The latest analysis have reignited discussions and debate. The research team is using advanced technological and geological methods to distinguish fact from myth, carefully studying the geological and archaeological significance of the site without drawing premature conclusions. Nicholas Papadopoulos, a right-wing MP in the Greek parliament, was detained for 6 hours after allegedly removing artworks from the National Gallery in Athens that he deemed to be offensive to the Blessed Virgin Mary and the saints. An Orthodox Christian, Nicholas had previously urged to the Minister of Culture and the museum director to remove these artworks from the exhibition, but after receiving no response, he took direct action.
A member of the Greek parliament was detained and charged with misdemeanor after removing artworks he deemed offensive to the Blessed Virgin Mary, Christ Jesus, and St. George from a temporary exhibition at the National Gallery in Athens. MP Nikolaos Papadopoulos, an Orthodox Christian and a member of the right-wing Niki party, was detained after taking down 4 artworks he considered blasphemous. Papadopoulos, who is also a cardiovascular surgeon, entered the National Gallery, Alexandros Soutsos Museum, on Monday morning with the assistance of another individual. He allegedly broke the protective glass covering the exhibits before removing the 4 controversial artworks. He was released later that day after being detained for 6 hours. The exhibits were part of a temporary exhibition titled The Allure of the Bizarre, which is set to run until the end of September. The exhibition includes 80 engravings by Francisco Goya, paired with works from 10 Greek artists who explore Goya's fascination with the grotesque and the hybrid. Among the featured pieces were works by Greek artist Christophoros Katsadiotis, including Icon, the Virgin Mary with Christ in her arms, and the Butcher of the Boulevard, which present distorted depictions of the Blessed Virgin and St. George. Papadopoulos' actions followed previous unsuccessful attempts to have the artworks removed. In a blog post published on February 24th, he wrote, quote, "At a time when even atheists faced with insurmountable human difficulties beg for the help of our Mother, the Virgin Mary, this exhibition presents a distorted icon of the Virgin Mary with Christ on her arms." End quote. The MP also criticized what he called government hypocrisy, stating that the Ministry of Culture condemns anti-abortion posters as fascist and puritanical, yet refuses to take action against blasphemous depictions in the National Gallery, claiming that doing so would amount to censorship. Following his detention on Monday, Papadopoulos took to Twitter, where he penned an open letter addressed to what he referred to as the government of atheists and antichrists. In the letter, he detailed the steps he had taken before resorting to direct action. He stated that he had submitted a formal question to Minister of Culture, Lina Mendoni, and sent a letter to National Gallery Director, Siragut Sierra, urging them to withdraw the controversial exhibits. Receiving no response, he decided to visit the gallery in person to discuss the matter. According to him, he was met with cold indifference and felt brutally insulted as an Orthodox Christian, prompting him to remove the artworks himself. Papa Paulos has since announced his intention to take legal action over his detention, arguing that arresting a sitting MP without prior parliamentary approval violates Article 62 of the Greek constitution, which grants deputies immunity from prosecution while in office. He warned that those responsible for this unlawful act will be held accountable. Meanwhile, the Holy Synod of the Greek Orthodox Church has also condemned the exhibition. In a statement released on Tuesday, it expressed strong opposition to the contents of the display and announced its intention to take appropriate action against the Greek government.
During the International Women's Day March in Mexico, feminist groups vandalized Catholic churches and cathedrals. The Cathedral Basilica of Guadalajara was defaced with graffiti advocating for abortion and criticizing Catholic Church.
Several Catholic churches and cathedrals were vandalized with graffiti and suffered structural damage during the International Women's Day marches on March 8 in Mexico. In Jalisco, the Cathedral Basilica of the Assumption of Most Holy Mary in Guadalajara was defaced with graffiti promoting abortion and criticizing the Catholic Church. In central Mexico, the San Jose Cathedral in Toluca was another target of feminist groups. They draped a green cloth symbolizing the abortion movement over its exterior gate and vandalized several statues on the cathedral's outer walls. Videos posted on social media showed people attempting to tear down the protective fencing around the Cuernavaca Cathedral. In the southeast part of the country, march participants sprayed graffiti on the walls of the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Assumption. Earlier in February, Bishop Jose Francisco Gonzalez of the Diocese of Campeche warned that those who promote and facilitate abortion would be excommunicated from the Catholic Church following the decriminalization of abortion in the state of Campeche. Archbishop Jorge Alberto Cavazos Arispe expressed sorrow over the incident but emphasized that Catholic Church is more deeply pained by the mistreatment of people. Cardinal Jose Francisco Robles Ortega, Archbishop of Guadalajara, acknowledged the legitimacy of the protest but stressed that it should be conducted with respect for society, respect for buildings that are part of a nation's heritage, and respect for people's property.
Ukraine has accepted Washington's proposal to temporarily lay down arms against Russian forces during a significant meeting in Jeddah. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also announced that United States would resume providing Ukrainian military with artillery and intelligence support which have been previously halted following President Zelensky's widely publicized dispute with U.S. President Donald Trump last week.
In a significant meeting in Jeddah with U.S. State Department officials, Ukrainian delegates agreed to Washington's proposal for a 30-day ceasefire with Russia, temporarily halting the conflict that began in February 2022. The 8-hour-long meeting was attended by a delegation of American diplomats and senior officials led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and a Ukrainian delegation headed by President Volodymyr Zelensky. The discussions were mediated by the host delegation, comprising of officials from Saudi Arabia's Interior Ministry. The ceasefire agreement approved during the meeting stemmed from the U.S. President Donald Trump's pledge to temporarily halt the conflict during his meeting with Zelensky 2 days earlier. The deal extends beyond the front lines, covering hostilities by land, sea, and air. In a joint statement issued after the talks, Secretary Rubio announced that he would extend an offer to Russia. He stated that if Russian delegates accept the proposal, the ceasefire will take effect immediately. Rubio also confirmed that the U.S. would resume providing artillery support and intelligence aid to Ukrainian forces, assistance that had been temporarily suspended following Zelensky's highly publicized dispute with President Trump during their Oval Office meeting last week.
Details surrounding Sunday's jihadi carnage are slowly emerging as an Israeli news network establishes contact with members of Homs's Christian community. Homs, a city on Syria's western coast, suffered heavy damage as jihadi forces rampaged through the area, destroying properties belonging to Christians.
Christians in coastal Yemen face mounting devastation as Israeli news network All Israel Network uncovers new details about the fateful day and the destruction inflicted on the country's Christian community. Homs, a city in the western part of the country and home to a small but significant Orthodox Christian population, suffered heavy damages as Alawite forces loyal to the Assad family clashed with jihadist militants. Manuel Ali, founder of Middle East Christian Aid, with whom the Israeli news agency established contact, described Sunday's events as Syria's equivalent of Israel's 7/11 attacks. Ali recounted his near-death experience when he and his team encountered jihadi militants indiscriminately massacring Christians in the streets of Homs. He recalled how he and his colleagues narrowly escaped death by taking cover under furniture inside a building owned by a Christian businessman. Ali described the recent violence as the worst the country has ever witnessed, emphasizing that jihadist fighters opened fire on anyone they suspected of being Christian. He also criticized the international media for its inadequate coverage of the suffering of Syrian Christians in Homs, arguing that news outlets have focused heavily on the massacre of Alawites in Latakia while overlooking the plight of Christians. Although an official report on Christian casualties has yet to be released, Ali and his team estimate that of the 1,000 lives lost during the attack, approximately 250 were Christians. While the Syrian government has announced plans to establish an independent body to investigate the carnage, Ali remains skeptical, claiming that jihadist forces operate with the blessing of President al-Julani and will continue their massacres until all non-Sunni populations are eradicated.
The Oklahoma Supreme Court has ordered State Superintendent Ryan Walters and Oklahoma State Department of Education to post their plan to purchase Bibles for public school classrooms. This ruling comes in response to a lawsuit filed by families, teachers, and advocacy groups who argue that the initiative is unconstitutional.
The Oklahoma Supreme Court has ordered State Superintendent of Public Instruction Ryan Walters and the Oklahoma State Department of Education to temporarily stop requesting bids for their plan to purchase Bibles for public schools. The ruling stems from a lawsuit filed last October by 36 families, teachers, and religious leaders challenging the effort to incorporate the Bible and Bible-infused material into the school curriculum. Just last week, Walters teamed up with country music singer Lee Greenwood to seek donations for distributing leather-bound God Bless the USA Bibles to classrooms. However, the court's order has put a halt to his efforts. Walters first proposed reintroducing Bibles to classrooms in 2024. His initial plan was to supply the Department of Education with 55,000 Bibles. However, critics argued that the proposal was unconstitutional. The lawsuit against the initiative is backed by several organizations, including the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU of Oklahoma Foundation, and the Oklahoma Appleseed Center for Law and Justice. In a joint statement released on Tuesday, the plaintiffs vowed to continue fighting Walters' Bible education mandate. In a statement to CBS News affiliate KWTV, Ryan Walters said that he will continue fighting to ensure students have access to this foundational text in the classroom.
The Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem has urgently called on to international community to protect Christian communities in Syria, particularly Armenian Christians facing renewed threats. In a communique released on March 11, the Patriarchate expressed deep concern for those in Aleppo, Damascus, and other areas who are once again at the risk of displacement and violence.
The Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem has urgently called upon the international community to focus on the protection of all Christians in Syria. A communique released on March 11th expressed the deep sorrow and concern of the Patriarchate for the Armenian Christians. The communique noted, quote, "Today the safety and security of all Christian communities in Syria are threatened once again by the violence and chaos," end quote. It also stated that the Armenians residing in Aleppo, Damascus, and other places in Syria who had rebuilt their lives after the genocide of the 20th century now face a renewed threat to their lives and heritage. With the fear of further displacement looming again, the Patriarchate urged governments, religious organizations, humanitarian bodies, and individuals to turn their attention to the protection of Syrian Christians. Praying for the peace and protection of all who suffer in Syria, the Armenian Patriarchate hoped for the day when all minority Christians can live in security without the threat of religious persecution. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a UK-based monitoring group, reported that more than 1,540 people have been killed in last week's violence. Although Syria's defense ministry said it has completed a military operation in the country's western coastal region, Christians and religious minorities are still living in fear and uncertainty.
This year marks the 25th anniversary of the annual Day of Unborn Child. Thousands of supporters are expected to gather at Sydney's St. Mary's Cathedral to commemorate the occasion on March 23, 2025. The Day of Unborn Child was originated in Argentina in 1998 and which was later endorsed by Saint Pope John Paul II.
Thousands are expected to gather at St. Mary's Cathedral in Sydney on March 23, 2025 for the annual Day of the Unborn Child. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the event, which is a powerful display of faith and solidarity in defense of the unborn. Organizers expect over 4,000 participants. On March 23rd, there will be a solemn choral mass at 10:30 am, followed by the praying of Angelus at noon. Afterwards, Archbishop Anthony Fisher OP will lead the procession from the cathedral to the Parliament House and back. Cardinal Michael Bychuk will be the guest speaker on the day. This year's Day of the Unborn Child coincides with the parliamentary debate on abortion laws in New South Wales. A proposed legislation by Greens MLC Amanda Corn would empower the Health Ministry to force Catholic and other faith-based hospitals to provide abortions. It would also require doctors who object on moral grounds to refer women to abortion services. The Day of Unborn Child originated in Argentina in 1998 when President Carlos Menem declared 25th March, the Feast of Annunciation, as the Day of the Unborn Child. The event soon spread around the globe and was later endorsed by Saint Pope John Paul II.
That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.